Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Habitat Podcast, where we are here to become better habitat managers through the experts and hunters that we interview across the country. I'm your host, Jared Van Hees, and thank you again to the listeners for tuning in to another episode. Glad to have you back. I'd also like to thank the listeners for going on to our iTunes page and leaving all the good reviews on there. We are climbing up the iTunes charts based on your 5-star reviews, so we really do appreciate it. And I am getting free decals sent out to whoever leaves us a good review on iTunes. Go on there under the podcast app. You can see us, give us a 5-star rating, and go ahead and type a text review down below that. And, I will find you, message you, and get you a free decal sent your way. Thank you again for everybody who's already done that for us and who is subscribing on the podcast app as well. I'd also like to mention our email giveaway. We had one done at the end of March for everybody who submitted their email address. Stan Holman was the gentleman who won the email competition for the month of March. We're going to be doing another one at the end of April. So if you guys have not submitted your email address on habitatpodcast.com, please go on there and do that, and you will be automatically entered into a giveaway. Stan won a Scent Crusher portable ozone generator, the one that you plug into your car cigarette lighter to go ahead and clean out every smell in your car on the way out to your stand. So Stan, I emailed you. Give me a response back. We'll get that shipped out to you. And thank you to all who have submitted their email address so far. We will continue to keep all of you in the monthly email drawing. Thanks again for that, guys. Next, I'd like to tell you about who is on the line tonight. Nick Percy from Killer Food Plots is our guest tonight. Brian and I had a great discussion with Nick. He's a sponsor of the show. He's a longtime friend. I've used his products for 4 years now, I believe, going on maybe year 5 now. Brian just got a ton of stuff picked up from Nick at the Ohio show this year. And we are excited to talk about 2019 plans with the Killer Food Plots product lineup. Nick has a couple exciting new products coming out. One has to do with treating bacteria in your water holes. If you're like me and you plant what I call a Teddy Clark water hole, which is a little, 20-gallon hole in the ground tub for the deer right by my stand, there's a way to treat that and keep the mosquito larvae, etc., from having too much bacteria in your water hole. So Nick gets into his new product with that. Also, he has some new seed blends coming out. I know he's getting into switchgrass and some other great seed blends that we're going to cover here in this episode. Again, when we talk to Nick, it's all so much information to write down, so have your notepad ready, guys. This is another great episode, just full of free information. So thank you again, Nick, for coming on the podcast. I would like to thank Killer Food Plots for sponsoring this episode. I would also like to thank Nick Nation with the Habitat Hook, Lincoln Roan at Packer Max Cultipackers, Michigan Whitetail Pursuit, and Dip That Hydrographics. All of those companies are on either our website or our Facebook page, and they are the reason we can keep running this show. There are a lot of costs involved, and they help keep this show going. So thank you very much, guys, for supporting the podcast. We're really happy to be partnered up with not just great companies, but great people as well. So without further ado, I would like to get Nick Percy on the line, and let's talk food plots, guys. Nick, how you doing, man? What you been up to?
Doing good, Jared. Doing good. Busy time of the year for us, brother. We got a lot going on, and a lot of new products and new launches. Getting ready for the big spring, summer planting time.
Yeah, no, I got to see you for about, 10 minutes today at a mutual friend of ours, so that was pretty cool. But you guys were off and at it again, on to another job.
Yeah. Well, the stars aligned for us so that we could be at the right place at the right time together today and hook you up with a new guy that you can help out, who's a good buddy of mine. And, we're always moving and shaking. We're getting into the world of industrial hemp and planting and, so got some exciting things going on there, which is diversifying our business. It's not necessarily a whitetail thing, but it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And it has to do with organic farming and producing a great product in a slightly different industry, although we do have our sun hemp in our lineup, in our KFP lineup. So that's exciting, but this will be a little bit different.
Oh,
And,
very nice.
not
that
like I
was
have any
awesome.
spare moments in the day.
No, I know you have less free time than I do, and I have three young kids, so I can't imagine
Right.
you're always burning it at both ends. Now, since we've
Well,
had you on the podcast last, I believe that was early last fall, talking about last minute food plots. What have you been up to since then?
well, a lot of exciting things going on. I was looking forward to getting a little hunting done last fall, and then the bottom, I guess, kind of dropped out. I lost my job last year as an engineer. I've been an engineer for 20 some years, and I had left my long-standing automotive employer and went to a new opportunity as an engineering manager, and was doing very well there. But apparently I chased my dream and my passion, which is killer food plots, a little too hard and a little too much. Things grew and our business grew, and I think honestly it became seen as a risk to my employer that maybe I wouldn't be around too long, and they were going through some reorganization. And honestly, it ended up being a pretty scary time for me. But in the end, it ended up being a great blessing. The big man always laying down the brick road for us to follow, and the pieces of the puzzle don't always seem to make sense at the time, but in the end, it makes total sense. There's no way I could have waited till spring to decide to make that plunge and jump out of the nest and free fall. Had I waited till now, or potentially even a month or so from now, there would have been no way to be in the position we are now and be as ready as we are for spring and summer.
Heck yeah, man. And you guys, I know we helped just share one of your posts a couple times about some spring property consoles. Have you guys been busy with those? And what are you guys doing with those now that you have them booked?
Yeah, we've been running, I've been running property consultations 3 to 4 days a week since basically late last year. We had a couple weeks. Well, last week I had a few consults we had to reschedule because we got that real heavy snow up in the upper northern part of the lower peninsula that left several feet of snow on the ground still for a lot of those clients, so they didn't feel like snowshoeing around with me. So besides that, we've been running consults 3 to 4 days a week, and then of course the show circuit, which we always look forward to meeting face to face and talking with a lot of our current customers and meeting a lot of new folks and educating, and been doing a lot of speaking at Field and Stream Deer in Turkey, the Grand Rapids Expo, and several other things, several other speaking opportunities, which I love that stuff. I love to educate. I love to share what I've learned, both in the good way and some of my crocodile pit experiences, so others don't have to experience those.
No,
It's painful.
And how was that deer and turkey show down there?
We've had some rather successful shows, and honestly, it seems like attendance was a little low this past weekend in Columbus, which is really unfortunate because that's normally our number 2 or number 3 show as far as sales and attendance. Wow. And I don't know how much St. Patty's Day and celebration had to do with it, but it seemed like maybe there was a big game on TV or something, but it did seem like around 2:30 or 3 o'clock on Saturday, things kind of really dwindled down as far as attendance and people in the aisle. But we had a lot of excitement. We had a lot of existing customers, a lot of new customers, both on Friday and Saturday, and a little bit on Sunday. We had people that came back that were there on Friday, on Sunday to do some purchasing and finish up getting explanations from myself and our team. And and it's, most important to me is that we had an opportunity to talk to people, educate, answer their questions, and make sure they get kicked off on the right foot, especially the new folks that have never done, or new guys and gals that have never done food plots before.
Well, if
Yeah,
anybody,
I'm trying to think if that
oh, go ahead.
shows. I'm trying to think if that show has fallen on St. Patty's Day before or not. That's interesting because I had to bounce for my daughter's birthday, so I was out of there probably before 2:00. But man, you were cranking them through the booth up until then. I had a hard time getting in there and even talking to you.
Yeah, it was a really busy set. I mean, it was elbow to elbow, but normally this show goes till I think 7. I don't know if it's 7 or 8 o'clock. I think it was 7 o'clock on Saturday. And normally, around 5:45, 6 o'clock, things start to wind down and people start to make their way out. Dinner time can sometimes cause that, but man, they were like really 3 hours off that early. So I'll be honest, by the time we got out to dinner, there was some people pretty loaded. They've been drinking for a while. A little wild and whooping it up, Ohio Buckeyes or whatever out there, whooping it up in Ohio. But no, that show is, a lot of our staff are from Ohio. A lot of our customers we have in Ohio. Our customers have shot some giant bucks down there. It was good to get the whole team together. Kind of the KFP family reunion happens on that weekend, and Mark Hammer and Bob Sisler and Mike Bierman and those guys, we get together. We had a great representation from our staff and definitely, I'm a Wolverine, but I have to tolerate all the jabs and poking for being one when I go to Ohio. So it's all good.
That's okay. That's okay. We have lots of friends in Ohio, and their deer hunting is also excellent. So, if the Buckeyes is the only thing that's gone wrong down there, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally kidding. Totally kidding.
We have lots of fun down there, but no, it was. I think it was overall it was a good weekend for engaging. There was a lot of questions. It seems like a lot more people are recognizing the value of food plots, and where historically they probably did a lot of baiting and tracking in that fashion, but more and more people are getting involved in food plots, and the benefit of that is you get a lot more natural movement by deer in and out of those type of plots. It seems like more and more people are just entranced by our Border Patrol strategy and our smoke screen and how we create trails and travel corridors for not only the deer, but for the hunters to, be able to cruise by bedding areas or feeding deer in the food plot to get into their stands and get positioned undetected. That's one of my passions is, the strategy of habitat and the strategy of the food plot.
Very nice. And Brian, what did you learn while you were down there talking with Nick?
Well, I think one of the reasons Nick gets so many people in there with so many questions is he's doing so much original content and so many unique things with his approach to the food plot seed. Because a lot of booths you go in, and I'm not trying to talk bad about any other companies, but a lot of booths you go in, they just take whatever seed they get at the seed supply and make their own mix and throw it in a bag and put a label on it. Nick's going way beyond just throwing a couple of things together. He's testing, he's trying new things, and I think that's what brings so many people to his booths, and they're so interested in what he's got going on.
Yeah, I think if you look at the seed, the tags on the back of his bag, I mean that's always my first go-to. And Nick, we even talked about that today during our meeting. That information back there is key when you're comparing to some of the other people you might see out there, or maybe making your own mix. But
yeah, people talk about quality, right? And what does quality mean? I have quality seed, and I've had some pretty in-depth conversations with buyers and seed growers, and it seems like the word quality gets thrown. We have high quality seed, but what does that really mean And I can tell you that I don't worry about what comes out of the ground until I worry about what's going on under the ground. And we focus, I'm a problem solver. You know that about me. I get all excited when someone says there's a problem, my ears perk up and I'm there. And so when I look at the challenges that we've had over the last 29 years of growing food plots, from the early days with my utter failures at the expense of my buddy's wallet, to, managing and starting to plant for customers and dealing with different soil conditions. Mother Nature, bless her heart, she always takes us to the mat every year and tries to choke us out. But, we've developed some pretty important products, not only in our seed products, but in our soil building and water and nutrient management tools with Retain, our organics, and replenishing the missing nutrients and, replenishing the biology without dumping a bunch of salt in the soil. And we'll talk about that hopefully in a minute, organics versus a synthetic fertilizer. But on the seed side, we're very, very focused on how the seeds we're putting in the bag interact with one another in the soil. And not only that, but the species of seed that we're putting together and what that outcome is in the tonnage per acre. But as you guys alluded to earlier, you can plant a great looking food plot, but if the deer do not eat it, what is the point? If they do not benefit from it, what is the point? And if they consume it and it fills their gut and it deals with addressing hunger pangs, but it's not doing anything to truly benefit their body or give them the energy or the protein and the essential nutrients, again, what is the point? And early on, those are some of the very statements I said in developing and raising high fence whitetails. As I said, what is the point of me growing this if it is not changing the health of my deer, if it's not growing my deer, if it's not affecting their carrying capacity and their body weight in a positive way? And so, again, problem number one, figure out what works. What's going to make a difference in the body of that deer? How is it going to affect the unborn fawn? Getting those does to recover from the intensity of rut, from the breeding, carrying those fawns, and then being able to carry out an effective 2-month lactation cycle, which is absolutely crucial in establishing the next generation of buck and doe fawns in your deer herd.
Yeah, that's definitely taking it to the next level. I'm sure there's not too many seed companies that are thinking that far ahead, and that's real important. And like you said, being a problem solver, my buddy Dave Ham that you were talking to at the show, he had an issue with his clover growing in rocky ground. And without missing a beat, you just walk them through, okay, that's no problem. We got this solution. We'll get you some Retain, help with the moisture so it doesn't get burned out. And you answered a lot of questions for him. And he said, man, I've asked 6 or 7 other people about this, and nobody could ever give me a straight answer.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I've seen that situation. My clients have, and, we manage in 29 states. And so there's lots of opportunities to run into those kind of challenges. And, there's several states, Michigan being one of them, that has a lot of rock. I mean, our southern Michigan ground, yeah, we have some quality ground, but we have a lot of rock, especially down by you, Jared. There's a ton of rock in Jackson and Jonesville area, down in that sector of the state. And we are dealing with rocky soil when it gets hot and dry, that those rocks are superheated like in a sauna, right? And they can cook the roots of your plant. And so one of the things that our Retain 100% organic or natural-based organic pellets do is they help to absorb moisture and nutrients, and by doing so, they swell. And so what starts out the size of a turnip seed, each one of those pellets can be about the size of a jumbo marble with maybe the sides jaggedly trimmed off of it, and about a 1/4 inch thick. It can hold, each one of those pellets can hold 300 times their original weight in moisture and nutrients. And in doing so, they expand and displace soil, right? In gravel or rocky soil, by opening up the soil and allowing oxygen to flow at the root level of the plant, it can also aid in cooling the root systems. By having that moisture contained and pulling that moisture and nutrients in, when that plant starts to rapidly grow, what happens is that by opening the soil, the roots can get deeper in the soil. They can get down away from that surface area where the hot sun and the high temperatures are drying the ground to get into that moisture. That moisture will allow a better foliage production above ground, which will limit the amount of sunlight that gets to the actual seed bed, the surface of the soil, essentially keeping it cooler. But then also by swelling and expanding and breaking up compaction with more oxygen flow, it truly can cool that gravel or cool that soil down and keep those roots in a temperature zone that will help them thrive instead of die.
That's pretty amazing stuff, Nick. And to be honest, not just because I like you and love your company and your products, I haven't seen anybody else offer a product like this. How'd you come across this product, and what other new products do you have, out in the market this year?
Well, again, it was a problem for me as an installer and as a manager for many, many people and all over the country. I was dealing with similar problems. And so I'm an engineer and I'm fairly intelligent, but nowhere near what it was going to take to put this together. So I reached out to a good friend of mine who I call him the mad scientist, but he works for a company that has the ability to do, and he does a lot of development and research. And he's very much a problem-solving type of individual as well. And he loves the challenge of figuring out these type of things. So he and I, whether he ultimately helps me find solutions or not, he and I do a lot of brainstorming and looking at different resources and where can we go and who can we partner with to develop things that don't exist, or there might be some marginal products that exist but don't serve the full purpose. And so he started doing some of that research. He works for a company that has the ability to produce similar chemistries and things that are essential for food plotting. However, they were not producing a product that was anywhere near, as my pro staff would call, nickified yet. And so we really worked hard for several years here to take our initial attempt at putting a product that would last less than a year, would fall apart, and over a period of time prove out a product in our retain that will now last for 3 years in the soil. It's an organic based pellet, and it will last for a solid 3 years doing its job and continuing to work regardless of freezing, regardless of how hot it gets. The available moisture swells and shrinks and swells and shrinks numerous times. If you cut it with a disc or rototiller, it still continues to work even regardless of slicing the pellets in half. And for me, what's important is that it's producing results for not only myself and my customers, but it's producing results for those who lack maybe the knowledge or understanding entirely of the food plotting process. We've got a lot of great things, and you asked about other products. We're working on a liquid. We've been working on this liquid line forever and trying to find some solutions to negative bacteria in the soil. And, I told you here not too long ago, everybody's gotten this big kick of putting these little cesspool water holes for their deer all over their property. And what they don't realize is they're going to be introducing negative bacteria into the body of their deer, into the gut of their deer, and that's going to supersede and start to attack the balance of the healthy bacteria they need to break down the food and nutrients they're taking in. So I'm going to go to work on that.
Nick, before you go to work on that, asking for a friend here who also has 15 acres. I'm wondering if I did plant a couple of those water holes, what are you doing to combat that bacteria that could be in there?
Well, we've been doing some studies with a company that has the ability to produce some product, to reduce the negative particulate or the negative bacteria in those areas. I don't have a name for all the products that we're producing yet to release necessarily, but I can tell you that we're on the cusp of making some announcements as the year progresses, hopefully before we get the hot summers where a lot of that algae and a lot of the fungus and not fungus, but the bacteria starts to produce in these holes, so that we can get those products out to people and they can start to treat those, those small or large watering holes to avoid the negative results of a stagnant watering hole.
Okay. Very nice. I tell you what, though, if we can neutralize that water in terms of bacteria, I had in Michigan a 140 plus inch deer drinking out of it. So back to Teddy Clark episode, I don't remember, I think it was 7, or maybe he has 7 acres, so it wasn't 7. I can't recall exactly, but I planted.
There's a 7 in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's a 7 in there somewhere. I planted a couple of those holes, and I tell you what, I watched deer use them all year long, and I get your concern too. So if there is a way where both things can meet and equalize, that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, and that's my goal, because water is definitely important. Whitetails get 85% of their moisture intake comes from the plants they eat.
Right.
But that 15% is very critical, and especially during the hot drought that does occur in many of our states. They definitely need supplemental water, and if you don't have water on your property, they're definitely going to wander somewhere else to get it. So if you're trying to hold those deer nice and tight to your property, having a clean, moving water source is best. The moving water seems to have less of the issues. But whitetails are inundated with negative bacteria throughout their rummaging through the woods and looking for food, and it's not just in watering holes, but that is definitely one of those areas where I want to come up with a solution that can benefit people, and we can do that without putting bad chemicals into the water to address bacteria there and killing off the bacteria in the stomach of the deer. So that is a key component. You're not going to do normal water treatment and without some negative impact. So those are the things that we've been studying and working on very closely, looking at the impact to make sure, as any other KFP product we put out, that we can stand behind it and we know that we're not doing any type of negative impact to our whitetail.
No, I love it. I think that's exciting new products, and I cannot wait to be one of the first to test it here at the podcast. So that sounds awesome.
You will be. I want that 140 plus inch buck to be living and not be sick or getting the Hershey squirts and getting dehydrated, brother.
Right. No.
Make that water haul work its magic in a good way.
Trust me. No, I hear you. No, that's awesome. And what I like about you most is you're just so knowledgeable, and a lot of people are knowledgeable. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like you're just a problem solver, and you're not copying what everybody else is doing. You're on your own path, which I respect a lot. So that's awesome, man. A very cool new product. Now moving forward, when people are prepping their soil, getting their thoughts in their head on what they want to do this spring, where do you come in? I mean, I know you guys offer some soil test kits. Let's talk about that. But then what? Like when it comes to planning, I mean, Brian has a very detailed plan for his property. Where do you step in terms of planning out once your soil is maybe ready?
So in the arena of soil testing, we definitely do soil testing. We're looking at organic matter. We're looking at the levels. Again, in the new product side of things, we are ready, almost ready to announce a new product. It's very close. We're going to run into the room like Kramer, and just at the last second.
I love that show.
But I know it's that guy cracks me up. But honestly, we've got to get this product rolling. We've got a liquid product that we're going to be able to spray on the ground. It's also going to deal with negative nematodes in the soil. It's going to address negative bacteria, and it's going to feed the healthy bacteria immensely. And it's going to help with applying micro and macronutrients into the soil in a liquid form. I can't wait to talk in more detail about the step-by-step. It's a little preliminary. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about it, but I will be sharing it with you, you guys extensively, and we'll be having you put it in the ground and be able to talk to people about it. It's a very exciting product in the fact that for those that cannot get that granular fertilizer, don't have the ability to get 40-pound bags of organics back to where you need to go, that you're going to be able to put a salt-free, highly nutrient-rich spray, foliar spray, and or ground prep and conditioner, which will eat negative bacteria, eat the sludge of salt from years and years of applying salt-based synthetic fertilizers. It will also consume, like I mentioned, the bad bacteria in the soil, neutralizing it. They aren't exactly sure what is going on with the phenomenon of what this product can do, but it is breaking down phosphorus, and it is breaking down high magnesium, and it is moving the bar back in the right direction, which is exciting. So this has been tested in numerous states, and we've got some not only independent studies going on with different states, but we've got some college testing going on at some of the universities, and they've got a lot of data and a lot of research behind this product that we're going to be launching here soon. So stay tuned to that. That'll be a product that we've got tons and tons of data to support. It's not just, I'm going to tell you it does this. We'll be able to back it up with data. And a soil test is getting back to the soil test. The soil test establishes the baseline or the blueprint of what's going on in your soil. And we're going to show by taking a soil test prior to applying this product and prior to planting, with applying this product along with some of our others, that you're going to be able to see some leaps and bounds success compared to previous years, not only in the quality of the soil and the plants you're growing, but the desirability. We're going to be able to increase sugars in year one, 15 to 20% in the plant. There's a lot of really good benefits to this product. We're also doing some extensive research with Michigan State, and hoping to get that kicked off here in the next month or so. They've applied. We're talking about them for applying for some grants for some federal dollars to be able to do some more extensive studies. But there's some even greater benefits to this product that are going to be researched, and I'm excited about the future of what it can be.
No, that's awesome. And I know I asked you more about that earlier, what we're going to call it, and we can't quite talk about trade names and trademarks yet, but I'm excited to hear about that. So say we're to that point now. We've really addressed our soil and its needs. How do you go about recommending to the regular Joe Blow like myself on where to start, how to make that property plan if you haven't hired a habitat consultant?
Well, first of all, once your soil's corrected, we need to talk about the type of soil you have, what type of moisture content you're going to have in that area. Sunlight. So sunlight makes a big difference. If you're just starting out correcting your soil, it may take a period of 30, 60, 90 days to get that soil fully corrected. And or if you're trying to build the organic matter and turn your sand into something of higher quality and get the organic levels up and build that soil, you may start with something like a deep woods blend, or you may be planting climatize, or white rage does very well in a variety of different soils for a spring summer food plot. In the strategy of, which is a pivotal part of about everything we do whenever we can, is we are a huge proponent of screening food plots, with not allowing that mature buck or doe to be able to cruise through the woods 30 to 40 feet back off the edge of a field and kind of do a drive-by and look at the field and not really want to approach or go near that field until just before dark or after dark. We want to force those mature bucks that are wondering if there's any does in the food source or out there in that, which is very much a social area. We want to force them to commit to go look in the food plot, and we do that with our border patrol and our smoke screening wrapped around the perimeter. We dictate where they enter by creating the openings where we want, and then when they enter that food source, we immediately are putting up blocking walls or teed off walls that force them to kind of zigzag or kind of work through it as a maze.
No, I like that. It's a very important product in terms of screening. What else do you guys do in terms of planning for the plan, if you will, itself? Do you have
Well, we do consultation.
Yeah.
We'll do consultations with people. So, we've been running a special during the winter series here of shows, and we've been running a half day and a full day special. So people can still take advantage of that if they reach out to us. It's saving them $150 on a half day and $300 on a full day. We come out, we look at everything from the canopy to the forest floor, everything in the middle. We look at evasives, entry-exit strategy, food sources, natural, supplemental, getting rid of those evasives and where we can apply or replant native species, how, of course, to build soils and plant supplemental food plots, whether they be killer food plots or they be, other fawning areas, perennial grasses. We look at all different types of stuff. We look at pond and wetland enhancement opportunities. Selective timber harvest is huge, depending on what's going on. And we have a full timber management crew building buck bedding and doe bedding to actually hold deer on your property, understanding how many deer does a particular piece of property have the capacity to hold and to support, especially when we're talking doe family units, alpha and beta does. They can be a bit territorial. So it's important that that's laid out properly. There's about 40-some things that we go through as a checklist. Most importantly, what are our customers' goals and objectives? So those goals and objectives of that customer are the number one thing that we need to address. We sit down at the beginning, we talk about it, we go through that list of items that are important to them. We fill in some things that we feel are important to not only educate them about, but how to incorporate them into their particular property or their particular plan. Then we go get boots on the ground, where we either jump on a side-by-side or quads and get out there, but most importantly, we need to get off and put our boots on the ground. I want to educate. I want to teach. I want to show the customer and make sure they fully understand what's going on in their property. Starting with entry-exit strategy, which is where tons of errors are made. I walk the same trail my grandpa or my dad or my great whoever has taken for years and years, and unfortunately usually yield the same poor results or low results, instead of understanding minor changes can change the outcome of a hunt and can change the desirability of mature deer to flex in and flex out of a particular piece of property in the right places at the right time for that hunter to capitalize.
Yeah, I think that's very important and something the customers will appreciate, you taking the time not only to tell them and show them what to do, but to take it another step further and explain the ins and outs of it. Now, Nick, that video that was playing at your booth, we talked about the layout with the Border Patrol, and you said you had a guy doing some mowing, and you had to stop him because he had mowed a little bit too far. If you want to walk us through the method of your madness of how you go about deciding where you're going to mow and how you're going to lay that out?
Yeah, in that particular video, we were showing a property that we worked on for the guys from Outback Outdoors out in Kansas, and we had gone out there in the spring to do some planting. It was a winter wheat field the previous fall, and everything was ideal. And we got out there to go ahead and turn that in and work that into the ground. However, on the way out, we had nonstop rain, and by the time we got there, they had 4 inches of rain had fallen in a very short period of time. So it was very soggy, to say the least, that when I got there Friday morning. And the next morning we went out and I walked around and it was like squish, squish, squish. It was horrible, man. Literally soaking wet. So what I made a decision to do is to, instead of mow that down and try to turn it in, we took the discs and we turned them straight. And what I did is I had the tractor, had the guys jump in the tractor and cut the ground with the discs turned straight in straight line, and then go across the other way and crisscross it to kind of make a checkerboard, if you will. And we had a pretty good wind following the rain, and that helped to dry that ground out. By the following morning, we set up a strategy, and the strategy was to take this roughly 3.5 to 4 acre field, which divided the major timber and bedding area from the of the does from the primary thick bedding areas of the bucks. And we wanted to create a connecting corridor, and so these guys were excited to put into play our border patrol and show them how you can create hallways that connect right up to thick cover and draw those deer in, making them feel safe moving around during daylight hours. And we had planted that weekend. In addition, on the inside of the maze, or inside of that perimeter, we created a series of several different 5-foot wide interior walls, and we had teed those off in opposite corners, and then in the middle we put a big dividing wall. And the purpose of that was to not only take that big wide open field and make it seem smaller or more secure, but also to force bucks and does to commit and move through those areas, to look for does to breed, for bucks to engage younger subordinate bucks, to let them know who was boss. But one of the other techniques we did to make sure that regardless of whether bucks were going to look for does and or vice versa during breeding, we have a technique where we take 5 to 7 foot saplings we dig out of the woods. When we're all done planting those plots, we drop those in each one of those corridors in multiple spots. So we have very specifically placed, helping and aiding in potentially our customer to have a shot angle at a deer, positioning the deer, getting the deer to position his body for high percentage kill shot. But we have those licking branches, and what ultimately in a social area, almost every single one of them ends up a ground scrape and busted all the heck. So what will happen is those bucks and does will work those during daylight hours, during the night, anytime, but they're in that general area. They're not going to bypass that food source in that maze. You had mentioned the gentleman who was there helping us, one of our guys that helps us in Kansas with our food plots as part of the KFP staff. He had actually mowed down one of the walls. We had some pretty tall grass and weeds growing in that field. By the late season, unfortunately, we had a very, very dry, after a very wet spring, we had an extremely dry summer. But fortunately, we had retain in the ground, which was helping, but it was also helping grass and weeds that were in this brand new plot we put in. So as he was mowing, he kind of lost track of where he was, probably daydreaming, driving the tractor as kind of a pressure release. It's a pressure relief activity, right? So he just kind of lackadaisically going through the motions, but he mowed right through one of our interior walls that was made to screen the deer and kind of direct their movement. Fortunately, Trevin and the gang from Outback Outdoors were still successful in harvesting a great mature buck. He played the script. He didn't notice the missing wall, and they were able to get it done when they went back out there to hunt. So, we love the strategy. We love the game. We like to, play that chess match and, hey, what the heck, it's nice when you can win once in a while and beat that deer in his mind and his nose.
For sure.
That's amazing. And was that not the video from the film show at ATA, or was that a different video for Outback?
Yeah, same. Yeah, that was the video we ran at ATA with the big it looked like a big diamond in the field.
Yeah, yep. That was awesome.
We show it green, and then we show it later in the year when the Border Patrol turns brown, and then we had, all the green in the middle of that with food. And so, yeah, we planted a spring-summer plot in there with Climatize, which the deer absolutely annihilated. And like I said, the grass and weeds kind of came in. Being a first-year planting, they had done the winter wheat the year before. Was the first time they'd turned that kind of feral, that field into a food source in quite some years. But we replanted that in the fall with our Carnage brassicas. We did the deep woods right in the corner where they had a stand where it kind of came out of that diamond Border Patrol maze in that diamond and met the woods. We did deep woods because it was a little more shaded there, and then we bled that into a Carnage plot and then a White Rage. And then on the flip side, we did the same where we, as it met the bedding area, is we took it back into Carnage, into deep woods again, out the backside. So the deer were moving through there, eating. We also had some resurrection clover that after we applied the brassicas, we broadcast our resurrection clover in there. So we had really great early season, all spring and summer, really food, high protein in the Climatize. And then going into fall, we had a high yielding 35 to 37% protein source in the clovers, which was great for early bow season for Trevin and the gang. But, our White Rage with the extra sweet sugar beets and radishes, those deer will ravage those radishes even early. It's not just a late season food source. And then some of the early season brassica blends in the kale that are in Carnage were highly productive for them in that early bow season for activity, and that field was just covered up in deer. So, which of course, is of huge interest to those cruising bucks going back and forth in the bedding area.
No, that's perfect, and I think that gave the listeners a little insight on how some of your successful clients have set up their fields this past year and have shot nice deer off them. So, no, thank you for that.
Yes.
Now, moving forward, this time of year, people are frost seeding. And I know we've talked about frost seeding a little bit in the past, but it's such an awesome way to get some stuff in the ground that I just want to cover it again. What is frost seeding? How do you frost seed? Which of your products do you frost seed?
Okay, so frost seeding happens in the South usually during January and early February. Here in the Midwest, basically the month of March, late February to basically early April. I would try to get your frost seeding done by the 1st of April if you can. I'm not sure how things are going to go, and hopefully we don't have an extended snow like we did last spring. So I would say now is really peak time to be frost seeding. Whether you have snow, you could have a couple feet of snow on the ground, or you could have bare ground. The frost is going to start heaving out of the soil, and as it does, it pushes the soil up, and consequently up and around, and the soil becomes moist, and then it kind of sucks the seed down and sets it into the ground for you without having to do it mechanically, without having to turn the ground, which is a huge benefit because you're not breaking down organic matter. Every time you disc or till the ground, you break down organic matter. So by broadcasting our resurrection clover, which we have 6 different clovers, very important to note that on clovers you want to have a hard seed rating, which we do on every one of our 6 clovers. That gives you a higher yield or higher success rate on your germination of frost-seeded clovers. One thing I can tell you is that, all of our clovers are 90% germ. There will be some potential loss from frost seeding if your germination rate can be a little bit less than it would be in a normal warm season planting, when the ground temperatures are warmer and the air temperatures are warmer here in the spring. However, the benefit is that those clovers, chicory, alfalfa, some of your cereal grains, even brassicas can be frost seeded if you choose to do so, or if you lack the tractors and the implements and the ability to do so. Those can be frost seeded as well, but they start in established roots and they begin to grow ahead of the grass and weeds establishing themselves in late June and July. And that gives them a head start, and it allows those that maybe don't have the time or, again, the equipment to get a healthy stand or a healthy food plot that will help the whitetails in their recovery early season.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, is there anything else we should be adding to the frost seeding? Is this a good time to put any lime down or fertilizer or anything?
So you can go ahead and apply lime, but lime generally needs to be worked in. So pellet lime and ag lime, it's very important to understand that they have to make contact with the soil. One particulate of soil must touch one particle of lime in order to neutralize or allow the available nutrients to be let out of the jail cell, so to say. And so lime really needs to be worked into the soil. So if your ground were to start to thaw, you would be able to run an implement and get that worked into the ground. The problem is that most of the ground is frozen to some level, and you're not going to really want to start running your rototill through it. It'll be like running it through asphalt or through Jared's property down there in Jackson. Or not through your specific property, brother, but a lot of the properties down there that have a lot of rock.
Yeah. Mine is more sand than rock, so I have problems of my own.
Yeah, you're very fortunate, though, that you don't have as many rocks as some of my customers I've started with. I'm like, man, I'm planting rock gardens, not fruit plots. But but what I can say is, to your question about fertilizer, you definitely don't want to put the fertilizers in the ground until your perennials and or any of your cereal grains or brassicas get about 3 or 4 inches tall. Then you can feed them. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to try to enhance or to help out any grass or weed success. We want to allow our food plots to get established, or our specific deer species seed that we're putting in the ground for whitetails to germinate, take off, and get a head start. Then you can feed them and keep them ahead. So it's definitely not necessary to do fertilizer.
All right. Speaking of fertilizer, I was having a conversation with a gentleman at the expo. We were talking about your products, and he says, man, I've had some really good luck with the killer food plots. And he said, I'm intrigued by that Groganics, but I'm a little bit concerned about the 844. He goes, that's a lot different than the 1313 or 1919. And I tried to explain to him about how you guys recommend 300 pounds for a new plot per acre. I mean, we're only talking 7.5 bags at that rate, and it's not like it's going to be much different from putting something else out. Could you kind of go into that, the difference between the 844 that you're putting out and some of the other fertilizers people are talking about?
Well, yeah. Hey, just before we jump on that subject, I did want to add one thing on the frost seeding. Sorry, but I just want to mention this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Very important. It's very important on the frost seeding that we're frost seeding perennials into a food plot that was planted with a brassica or a cereal grain or some other type of food source last fall. So we have essentially a clean, bare ground to frost seed onto. we don't want to try to frost seed into a area that is heavy in grass content that maybe is dormant now, but it's got a strong root system. It would be very difficult to overcome that by spraying the grass after the fact without doing more of a potent glide with some surfactants to kill that grass to the root. You'll have a more difficult time trying to use a grass out max after the fact to not kill the clovers or the chicories or the alfalfa, but still kill the grass. It will be a much harder journey to do that. So when we're talking about frost seeding, we're talking about putting this in known open areas that were previously planted in the previous fall. So anyway, I just wanted to put that point out there.
Nick, I'm glad you did. We have talked about that in the past, but it's very important to make sure you cover that, because if you're going to go and broadcast your seed into an already healthy and very competitive grass patch, you're not going to get much growth. So like Nick said, for the listeners out there who haven't done this before, already prepped, bare ground, old food plot, somewhere where the competition is minimum, and your frost seeding will work very well. I mean, I did it last year, and I was blown away. I mean, I'm going to do it again tomorrow, actually, and some more clover and chicory are going to go in the ground. So,
yeah, definitely. So, Brian, getting back to your comment or your question about the Groganics being an 844 versus a 1313, 1919, or 1717 or whatever people historically use, the difference in the fertilizer is a synthetic fertilizer. The end source is a very slow releasing, limited availability end source, as well as a potassium, the release of potassium and phosphorus in the soil in the synthetic fertilizer. Synthetic fertilizers are bound together with salt, and salt kills biology in the ground. So it very much hinders the survival of a lot of your microorganisms, and it kills bacteria, it kills fungi in the soil. So over a prolonged period of time of using synthetic fertilizer without replenishing the bacteria and the fungi and the microorganisms in the soil, your soil will die a slow death. And it's amazing to me as I test a lot of people's soils and I look at them, and when they come into the lab or they're being processed, we look at these soils, and it's important. You're not going to look at a soil and see that it's alive, but you're going to look at the soil report and you're going to see the organic levels in the soil. And I think, most people are going to go the cheap route, and they're going to go buy some whatever fertilizers on sale or whatever the cheapest stuff is, and they're going to throw it out there, and then they're going to buy very expensive seed varieties or maybe not, and they're going to throw it out there and expect to have the field of dreams, and that's just not how it works. Food plots do not have to be hard. They do not have to be this untouchable, like you can't produce them like they show them on TV, or like we produce out of our killer food plots for our clients and pictures you see on our Facebook page. Those are real everyday people putting in food plots with success. But it starts with a laboratory soil test that establishes where the holes are in the soil. 844 in a Groganic is immediately, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash are immediately available to the plant. We also have several other ingredients in that, micronutrients, very important. We're replenishing those. The bacteria and the fungi are being replenished by that product into the soil. So we're continuing to add life to the soil. The carbon that's in it feeds the bacteria. That's the food that causes the bacteria to multiply, and they are very essential in breaking down the vegetation and into a state where the plant can eventually use them to have to benefit the growth and establishment of the roots. Calcium, very important. Our calcium source is immediately available to this newly germinated seed root to be able to fortify and get lots of small hair, finite root sprouts out of that single germinated root that comes out of that seed to make that multiply. And you want that to spread so that it can seek out and by releasing and opening up the jail cells, the available nutrients that are locked up in the soil, by releasing that through our application of either pellet lime or ag lime and making those nutrients available. Also by making the nutrients available through the Groganics fertilizer and what's in that bag, that plant can really fortify a strong root system, and a strong, wide, deep root system will help to choke out unwanted grass and unwanted weeds. The additional things that are in Groganics are actual organic matter, which, the fastest way to create organic matter is to burn or to apply Groganics. So adding that organic matter into the soil will help to hold moisture, hold nutrients. The climbing, vining fungi that creeps and crawls, that acts much like that spider web, a spider web effect in the soil, helps to keep moisture and nutrients suspended, starts building your sandy soil, Jared, which, I know you know these things because you've used the products before and you've seen results. But in addition to that, we have minerals which are important for plant growth and development, but that also transfers those critical minerals into your deer through that green vegetation. So we're trying to cover the basis, but most importantly, immediately available NPK and calcium. Triple 13, triple 19, they contain NPK. That's it. They don't have calcium. They don't have micronutrients. They don't add biology. They don't add organic matter. They don't add carbon to feed the bacteria. They don't have any of those things, right? So that, in that combination, helps us to produce that picture I shared with you, that testimonial from that customer where he had applied 300 pounds of triple 19 to start his carnage brassicas on 1 acre, and immediately right next to it with a CRP, a line of CRP separating it, he spread out 1 40-pound bag of Groganic over an acre, thinking he was going to really spread it out off the front of his side-by-side, only to realize it was only spreading about 3 foot wide. However, that 1 40-pound bag zigzagged around in some crazy design on his 1 acre, produced 11 to 12 inches of growth in the same period of time, the 3.5 weeks that he had 4 to 5 inches, with the use of 300 pounds of evenly distributed triple 19.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was an impressive picture, no doubt.
Well, it's been duplicated over and over. There's some testimonials on our page from a gentleman talking about carnage brassicas with the Groganics out in Minnesota, and he was a diehard fan of another seed company from that area, and he didn't think it could ever be outproduced. And these guys, there's 5 guys, they pitch in thousands of dollars, and they compete for who can grow the biggest, baddest looking food plot that the deer love and who shoots the biggest buck. And I can tell you, this guy put it right next to this variety of seed blend that is a big name, and does a good job. Generally does a great job of producing great forage and availability for deer. But they had a drought, and when they hit that drought, what he commented to me on, he did a triple 19 with this product. He did our product with triple 19 and both products with Groganics. And what he said to me, he did triple 19 on that product, and he did Groganics on the carnage brassicas. And what he said to me was that when it's a testimonial on our page, he said, when we hit the drought period, Groganics continued to stay green and healthy where the other product wilted and started to kind of droop and go into a dormancy stage. After the moisture returned and they started to get a little bit of rain, not only did the carnage brassica stay green the entire time and continue to grow at a much slower pace, but they still continued to grow. When the moisture returned, they blew up and way outproduced that other particular seed variety. And that's that's a compliment to not only the particular seed species that are in Carnage, but also the adder of the Groganics. And I can only, hope that this year, as I've spoken to that customer this spring, and he shared his story and the deer that he shot, that he'll introduce some retain into his food plot this year and really control that moisture when he plants his entire food plot full of Carnage and uses Groganics on the whole thing this year.
Wow. Nick, that's super amazing. And I mean, I've planted your products now for 4 years, and whether you were a partner of the podcast or not, or a friend of mine or not, this guy, being myself, turned, amateur into who I am now, trying to learn, doing as much as I can, talking about this stuff once a week, whatever. My food plots look awesome. I mean, I'm not saying people can't do it, just with the basic run-of-the-mill stuff, but with all the money and time that I put in, I want the best. And you can look on our Facebook page. The background picture for our cover photo for the first, year of the podcast was my food plot, brassicas. I mean, it looks like Lee and Tiffany's plot. I mean, if I can do it, and I can take it out to a sandy soil with high maintenance soil, like your toughest stuff, and go out there and grow, 18-inch brassicas on a September 1st food plot. I mean, it really speaks truth to what you're saying, and I do appreciate all the knowledge and the time you put into your products, because guys like me are benefiting from it. So I encourage your listeners, not just because you're a partner, to check this out, but because I have literally had success not knowing much about this stuff and being very impressed. So I give you kudos, man. And your Groganics needs to go into the program as well. I mean, this stuff is legitimate. There's no doubt about it. So
we're excited about. We're actually, I'm never content with any product we have. It's never done. It's we might put it on the shelf for a little while and let it ride and do its good work. But we're evolving it even further, and we're going to have a Groganics Generation 2. We have a new 705 with a 4% calcium coming out, that 0 being the phosphorus. So we're not continuing to add more and more and more phosphorus into the ground. A lot of the soil tests that we're seeing also have extremely high phosphorus levels. And until this new product that we're looking to release here a little bit later this spring, we have not had, historically, nobody has really had a good way of breaking down the phosphorus levels in the soil and getting them under control. And yet, we continue to pound our synthetic fertilizers or pounding even Groganics has a natural phosphorus level. So I wanted to supply a fertilizer that met the qualifications and the results that our current Groganics is doing without adding salt, but without continuing to build on top of those phosphorus levels. And so with that 705 and a 4% calcium, with all the standard stuff that's beyond standard, but all the things that are definitely needed in the soil, and the micronutrients, carbon, calcium, minerals, the biological package, and the organic matter, we wanted to be able to help our customers and those throughout the country that have a phosphorus problem to be able to have a solution, to be able to have a successful food plot without adding to that problem. We also are going to be releasing our latest version of Groganics in a 444 with a 4% calcium. So there it went. The number dropped from an 8 to a 4. Well, that's because we are constantly moving that bar, and we are elevating it, and we're finding new and better ways to make that nitrogen source more and more available to the plant, have the calcium disperse within the soil. And we are excited to be able to offer this. Both of these products are going to be organic. they're going to be OMRI certified, which means organically certified products. So they will not burn your paws of your animals. They won't burn your kids' feet or hands. As you broadcast this 705 with a 4%, you're going to be able to grow your lawn with that in your yard. You're going to be able to not have to stake it out with yellow flags for the next 7 to 10 days like you do after your fertilizer guys have come to your yard and spread this highly concerning fertilizer all over that has the nitrogen that can burn the paws and burn the feet of your kids. You're going to actually be able to apply this product and go out and enjoy your yard again. You're going to be able to use 444 not only on food plots, but you're going to be able to use it in gardens and potted plants, and you're going to be able to use it in the other aspects of your life. You know, just like I mentioned earlier, you know, I'm getting into some other arenas with industrial hemp. You know, I'm looking at solving problems outside of just food plots. And I know this podcast is associated with, you know, looking at that. But look, you know, at the end of the day, you work on your food plots, you go home, your wife is concerned about what the yard looks like. You're concerned about what your yard looks like. And hey, why not provide a solution that can keep mama happy and keep the flowers growing and keep the kids and the dogs safe? Well, you know, you're out working on your food plots and you're doing the same thing out there. So definitely dual purpose, always thinking out of the box. I'm a big picture guy, looking down the road to figure out, you know, where we can help and how we can help in the products that we're delivering. They definitely have multiple functions.
No, that's awesome, man. And, you know, I have a guy up the road who his yard looks pretty spectacular. I don't know if I can beat him, but I'm really going to try. So I do.
Oh, yeah, you can. We'll make sure.
I love it, man. And you know, Brian's got a truckload full of killer food plots going in the ground here real soon and this year. So, and I do as well coming up. So, guys, pay attention to the videos we're going to be putting out, the posts we're putting out. We're going to document in detail how we at the podcast plant these products like everybody else. And we're going to show you our successes, our failures, and everything in between. And hopefully a big old buck at the end of the October, the month of October, maybe even November. One of these big boys dropping, lying in a field of carnage brassicas. We will see. But Nick, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. We got another amazing podcast, man. There's so much information coming out of you that's just, I want to call you the mad scientist, but that's already Mark Drury's name, so I can't do that. We have to come up with one for you because you are literally on another level, and I love it.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, I love to be a resource. I love to educate. For me, it is truly about the challenge of solving problems and bringing solutions. You know, there's many seed blends in our lineup for I call them the poor man food plot, where you don't have to have all the crazy tools, $50,000 tractors and all the toys, with a little bit of, with a 1 gallon sprayer, a rake, weed whacker or a sickle, some deep woods, carnage brassicas, lethal winter oats, or our new crop duster. You're going to be able to have a successful food plot. So don't give up, don't give in. Throw us an email out there or reach out to the guys, you guys on the podcast, and we're constantly talking. So hopefully we can help educate some folks, and, can't bait this fall, but we're going to be able to produce results like they've never had before in a food plot that is going to produce more natural movement from their whitetail. And I'm excited to see what's going to be coming out of Michigan. Heck, we had a 231-inch buckshot here last year. That's amazing. And you know what? Ooh. I think there's greater things to come from our state, right? So.
Heck yeah, buddy. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. We do appreciate your time, Nick. And, as always, we're right here ready for another conversation. So keep up the hard work, and we will talk again very soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning into another episode of the Habitat Podcast. Thank you to Brian and Nick Percy from Killer Food Plots for coming on this episode. What an episode full of information, guys. Please go check him out at KillerFoodPlots.com. Give him a call. He's on the road all the time these days. He has time for phone calls, and he will talk you through whatever questions you have. whatever product questions, situational questions, property, etc. He's doing a lot of property tours right now. Just he's a good guy, very knowledgeable, and I don't think you'll regret calling him. So call Nick at Killer Food Plots. Thanks again, Nick, for coming on the show. I want to thank our listeners once again for all the great reviews you guys give us on iTunes, Facebook, the feedback we get. It's amazing. Really, really appreciate it. I love you guys. If you can continue to go on the iTunes website or your podcast app on your phone, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe to the podcast, write a text review about what you like about the show. That'd be super helpful, and I'll send you a free decal. Also, if you go on habitatpodcast.com and drop your email into the subscribe section there on the homepage, you'll be notified of any cool discounts you may get, and also entered into a monthly drawing for email subscribers. So check that out at habitatpodcast.com. You can also find all of our episodes there. We're doing some cool YouTube stuff these days, Facebook, Instagram, you guys know the drill. Find us online. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We'd love to help you guys out. Thank you again so much to our sponsors, Killer Food Plots, Michigan Whitetail Pursuit, Dip That Hydrographics, Packer Max Cultipackers, and the Habitat Hook. We love our sponsors. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Couldn't do it without you. And again, to all our listeners, tune in next week as we're becoming better habitat managers. We'll be back with another great informative episode for you. Have a great night.